Okay, here we are out at our patterning board. So let's just look at a little bit of the hardware we've got here. This patterning board is just made out of 2x4s and some 3/4 inch plywood. And then to that, we've screwed in from the back side some 3-inch screws that project through here about an inch or about 2.5 inches. And what we do is we end up putting our pieces of cardboard directly onto that. So there are no clamps or screws that you have to put in each time. These just sit here, you pop it on, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute. So this is very simple to build, very inexpensive, and that gives us our good patterning board. We also have one of the screws is right square in the middle, and that's where you'll see a little bit later where we're going to put on our target that we're actually going to be shooting at. Now, in addition to that, we have here our stack of cardboard, and these work just fantastically. We get these in our area from a company called U-Line. These particular ones are 40 by 48 inches, and they cost about $1.90 a piece when you buy them in groups of 25. And these work great because they're quick, convenient. We can pop them up here, take our shot very quickly, remove it intact to a different area where we can take a photograph, pop the next one on. So if you're doing a group of people, this is the way to go, because we're not wrestling with paper and it's not blowing around and all those type of things. So again, you can get these from U-Line. This is 48 by 40, and it costs about $1.90 a piece. Now, the way we mount these up here is we come over here and got some screws here that I have positioned in such a way that I can feel the distance from each side with my finger, and when I get it where I want it, I just put it through, come up here and make sure I'm the same distance up here, and then just push it up against, and there we go. So now our patterning board is ready to receive a shot. Now, another thing to talk about here is we've measured out from the distance where we're going to be shooting to exactly 100 feet. So I've got my tape measure here. So the front surface of this is 100 feet from the end of my barrel at the other end. Okay, now what I have here are 4 different size targets. These are all square, perfectly square. This is a 3-inch target all the way up to a 6-inch target. And what we do is, by putting your bead inside of a square, we're more accurately able to align our gun and shoot exactly where we want to. So our bead is not covering up completely. We'll see here in a minute, and a little closer up, but you should have equal corners of black showing all the way around. The different size targets are determined by the size of your bead. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take a 5-inch pattern, and here's how I put it up here, right in the middle. Again, I've got my screw protruding from there, and so there's the target that I will put my bead and cover that, and I should have 4 corners as I'm looking on the end of my gun. My bead should cover the majority of this with 4 black corners on it. That's how I know I've got it aligned. After I've taken the shot, of course, any BBs that hit this will go right through, so that won't block anything. When I'm done, I just pop this off, then I take my patterning board to go have photographed, hang on to this, and I put this back up here before each time that I shoot. So this is how we determine where we're going to point our gun. Okay, here we are at the shooting stand, and this is something that we've put together that works very well. You can modify it, nothing magical about this, but this does function. It's pretty easy to build, and it's inexpensive. So what we've done here is we've created a frame approximately 3 by 3 and for stability, covered it with like BC plywood, 3/4 inch plywood, and then on the corners we've attached some 1 by 2s stakes. And what this allows us to do, if you're in an area where this might wiggle around, it allows you to drive the corners into the ground to create a real rigid, sturdy base for you from what you're going to shoot. Then to the top of this, we've mounted a vise, and this you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot, fairly inexpensive. These are often used for holding doors This particular one is put out by Rockwell. It's called Jaw Stand. And the nice thing about it is that it moves up and down this way, moves this way, and it just easily can be, once you get it to where it's perfect for you, then you can tighten it down, and it provides a very stable base with which you can put your gun in. And then what we do up here, this is of course where we put our gun, and then we just line it with a cloth just to protect your gun. And so that's what we do here. So this is what provides the very stable base, and this is real important when we're shooting our pattern, is that when we're pointing, the gun is not moving. So down at the other end, we're going to be measuring in inches from dead center, and so if you wiggle in 100-foot distance, it's going to throw you off. So you want a very stable fixture to hold your gun while you do take that shot, and this is what we find works very well. Like I say, it can be put together easily on a Saturday afternoon, and then you've got it long term for shooting your patterns. Okay, now I have gotten my gun into the vise, and if you notice, I've done it in such a way that I can open my gun in order to put another shell in to shoot more than one shot without rearranging this. So what I've done off this video is just gotten this aligned so that when I have mounted my gun exactly like I would outdoors, that it's comfortable. So I'm not ducking my head or peeking up or anything. It's just very comfortable, just like I would outdoors, and then that's how I've put my gun in the vise. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is choosing the size of the target that we're going to put on the patterning board. Now what we like to use is a calipers or a micrometer. This doesn't have to be fancy. You can get something like this at your hardware store for probably about $9. And what you do is you measure the outside diameter of your bead. And in my case, my bead is 150 thousandths. And based on that and some calculations that we'll discuss a little bit later in the video, I've determined that the best size pattern or best size target for me is a 5-inch target. So yours may vary depending on the size of the bead. It's a calculation of how many barrel lengths it is from where you're shooting to the target, and times the size of the bead determines which size target we should be shooting. Mine turns out to be a 5-inch, so I'm going to go now down to the other end of my patterning board, put this on here, and I'm ready to take my first shot. Okay, now I'm ready to take my first shot at the patterning board, and as always we want to make sure that we're practicing good gun safety, make sure that the range is clear, that you have your safety glasses or your shooting glasses on, and that you have hearing protection in, all of which I have done. I've got my ear protection in, I've got my shell, and now I'm ready to take my first shot. Okay, now we'll go see what we have on the other end. Okay, here we are at the patterning board after my first shot, and of course this is the target that I was shooting at, and all I do is I remove this, and any pellets that hit here of course went through and are now inside, and so all of my pellets have been captured in this piece of cardboard, and it's ready to be photographed. Very simple to pop off there, and then take it to wherever we're going to photograph it and put the next one on. Put the next one on. So all I do is I reach in here, pop it straight off. And that one, what we like to do is put a number on that so we don't lose track of which one it was. I've got my next one. And I'm ready to go. I'll put my target back up here. Sure it's level, and now I'm ready to go take my second shot. Okay, now I'm inside. I'm actually in my dry fire room, and what I've done is just set the patterning board up on a table where I'm going to take a photo. A lot of times you want to be in an area that doesn't have direct sunlight. It's a little easier to get a good photograph. You could shoot it on the patterning board if it's a cloudy day, and it'll come out quite well, but in a bright sunny day like this, it's too bright, too many shadows from the screws coming through and so forth. So I've got my patterning board set up here. I'm going to take a photo. You want to shoot. It doesn't have to be a high resolution. You just want a good JPEG image. And then we're going to load this image into the software that Dr. Jones has created that's going to help analyze your pattern. And you can always go to our website, dryfireus.com. You'll find a link to Dr. Jones's site so that you can upload your photo of your patterning board there, and his software will analyze your shot pattern for free and give you some very important information. So again, you can go to our website, dryfireus.com, find a link to Dr. Jones's terrific website. So I'm going to take a photo right now, and that's all you need to do. Then you download this onto your computer, and that's the attachment that you'll send in to have analyzed. So I'm going to take my picture now. Just like that, and you want to make sure that you've included the entire patterning board. You don't want to be inside the patterning board because you'll miss some of the pellets that are on there. So make sure you're outside the width of the white board, and take it nice and straight up. If you're a real tall person, you might want to kneel down a little bit. You don't want to shoot too much of an angle down. You want to be fairly straight onto the image. So that's the next step.
In this short video clip, we wanted to show you the relationship between the circular bead and the square 5-inch target down on the patterning board. Now keep in mind that the camera lens is a good 5 to 6 feet behind where the shooter's head would be, and that is the reason why the bead appears to be so small in relation to the 5-inch square, which we said we had measured, and that was the right size. So again, this is just an optical situation because of what we're trying to do. But we think that you can clearly see that the bead, which in this case is a cylindrical colored light green shaft with a piece of metal around it, and that's that darker portion you can see around the circular portion, is squarely in the center of the 5-inch square. Now in the real world, when you put your head down on here, this circular portion completely fills the 5-inch square, and that's what helps us to make this a perfect alignment. In this short video clip, let me teach you how to determine the exact size of the target square that you need at the specific distance you're shooting. So you're going to start by measuring the distance from the muzzle of your gun to the target board. I would suggest you do it in feet or yards, and then convert it to inches. In my example, we are 100 feet from the patterning board to the muzzle of the gun. Multiply that by 12 inches, and we have a total of 1,200 inches from the muzzle of the gun to the patterning board. Next, I'm going to mount my gun and have someone measure the distance from the bead on my gun to my shooting eye in the mounted position, and we're going to call that a barrel segment. And let's suppose that mine was 40 inches. Now, the next thing that I need to do is I'm now going to divide the number of inches between the muzzle and the patterning board by one barrel segment, which is 40 inches. So I'm going to divide 1,200 by 40. And that will come out to be 30 barrel segments between the muzzle of my gun and the patterning board. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take a micrometer and measure the diameter of the bead on the end of my barrel. As I've done that, mine turned out to be 150 thousandths of an inch, 0.150. And the final thing that I need to do to determine the size of my square is to multiply the number of barrel segments, in this case 30, by the size of the bead, which is 0.15, and the answer is 4.5 inches. So that means that if I were to make a square that was 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches, when I mount my gun and point at that square, the bead will appear to me to be exactly the same size, the 4.5 inches, as the square. And since I'm mounting a round object inside of a square, I will be able to see the corners, especially the top two corners, sticking out from around the bead. And of course I'm not going to really be able to see the bottom portion because the rib on my gun is going to block that. But it will be very easy for me to perfectly get the bead perfect left and right and perfect top to bottom. And that's all there's to it. Hope that helps you.